Welcome to Exploring Every Angle, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of creatives from all walks of life. I'm your host, Thomas Powell, a video editor immersed in the YouTube space. In each episode, I sit down with guests from the creative world to explore their journeys, unpacking their upbringings, passions, and their goals that drive them forward. Hello everyone and welcome back to Exploring Every Angle. Today we have a really interesting guest on today's episode. His name is Moises Valor and he is the COO of Futcrunch. And the Futcrunch channel, if you're not too familiar with it, is a YouTube channel that mainly is based around football and FIFA. To this day, at the moment, they're currently on 5.8 million subscribers, so nearly 6 million. The most viewed video as of right now is a video with Haaland, which involved him receiving some custom shoes, currently on 46 million views. So that's pretty incredible numbers there. So welcome, Moises, and thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you to you, Tom. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. Obviously,
I've known of you for a while because I have done work for Santiago himself, who is Futcrunch. That's his real name, Santiago. But his channel name, he goes by Futcrunch. How did that name come about, by the way? I don't actually know. What's the story there?
So, the story behind the channel, basically, Santiago at the time was playing a lot of football. And so basically, FUT, it comes from football in Spanish.
Right.
So most people might think it's like, hey, FIFA Ultimate Team at the time. But in reality, it was like the way we spell football in Spanish is FUT. So FUT from football. And then Crunch, I think it comes from he was eating something at the time. So like something crunchy. And then something around us. It was either that or he was experimenting with some sort of different type of combinations with football and some other type of sweets. I think it was between those guidelines where he kind of came up with the name Futcrunch.
Interesting. Okay, that's really random, but I love it. That's amazing. But yeah, as I said, obviously, I did a fair bit of work for Santiago himself, mainly the short content, which was really fun. And some of it, like just the long form and the shorts both kill it. Like Santiago and, everyone, part of the team, they're absolutely doing an amazing job. And, the videos just seem to keep flying every upload. And even like the shorts, the most popular one, 69 million views. And that's one of mine, which was an edit about comparing different Champion League seats.
Yes.
Where it's like cheapest to the most expensive. It's incredible numbers. But yourself, I wanted to talk a bit more about. As I said, you are the COO of the channel. I want to take things back a little bit to like the beginning, back to 2015 specifically, when you were moving to the UK for the first time. So you grew up in Venezuela, I believe?
Yes, I grew up in Venezuela. I was born in the capital, but then raised in another city called Puerto Ordaz. So I lived there up to my 18th birthday when I moved to the UK in 2015, October 2015.
You moved to the UK at that moment and you couldn't speak the language. You had to learn it for the first time. What was the biggest challenges you faced in that period where you were leaving your home country and coming to a new country for the first time?
I think the biggest challenge for me was the fact that it was the first time for me being alone completely by myself. Obviously, for the first time, I've always been entrusted with things like money, things like, having been an organized person, doing your home duties. But this was another game changer. It was like, yes, you were given in my case, not everyone had this privilege, given X amount of money for your parents, you need to make ends meet, whatever. Obviously, I was a very privileged person because I had the opportunity to come to study. But I would say the first and major challenge was try to organize yourself and become sufficient yourself by yourself. Nobody was going to tell you where to go to shop. There was no mom anymore telling you that's not what you should buy for the food. Then there was time difference. So obviously I could not always speak to my parents or my family back home. And also the language, nobody told me about the Liverpool accent. And the first night, the first time when I arrived on the night, I remember that I couldn't understand anything that the taxi driver was saying. And somehow we managed to get to the accommodation where I was staying. Somehow, I just still don't know.
That's a really tricky place to go to for the first location in the UK to visit, Liverpool, the hardest accent to understand. That was you give yourself quite a tough task there to begin with.
Nobody told me about the accent, to be fair. And I still believe the Scottish accent might be a little bit harder. Depending on the region, especially if you go to Glasgow. But definitely nobody told me like Scousers or Liverpool, people from Liverpool speaking really difficult English and not clear at all, and they cut words and etc. etc. I still, the first day of university, I remember I got lost because I couldn't understand anything. I arrived to the place like 2 hours late. So
wow. Well, yeah, no, it must have been such a surreal experience. For myself, I've never lived in another country before. So just to kind of put myself in your shoes and do that and leave your home country and come into a brand new country, new language. You're also in a location that has a very harsh accent. I don't know how I'd cope there. That's quite a lot to deal with all at once. So, props to you there for doing that. So obviously, you grew up in Venezuela. Do you visit home often?
No, unfortunately, I haven't been back since I completely came to the UK. Thankfully, my family now also live in the UK, so it's a little bit easier.
Awesome.
So I don't need to, at least my direct family lived in the UK, in Liverpool, actually. So it's not as if like I need to go back home to visit a specific family, etc., etc. I still miss it. Sometimes it's my own country. I grew up. I still have many of my characteristics as a person still come from the place that I was born until like 18 years old, so Venezuela. And a lot of my personality have to do with how we are back in Venezuela as well. But I've always identified myself with European culture. And so it wasn't as hard of a challenge for me. I don't know, I was always drawn to Europe for some reason or another. So perhaps it wasn't as hard for me as for some people, which there are some people that they cannot. They need to go back to Venezuela. If you ask me, I would like to visit at some point my country because it's beautiful. And if they wasn't in the situation that it is right now, economically speaking, and with a lot of political problems and a lot of insecurities and its dangers. But if it wasn't for this, it's an amazing country that everyone, I would recommend 100%. If you know someone from Venezuela, go and visit it because it's an unreal experience.
Being in the UK now, what's the main key thing you like about both countries? Are they similar anyways? Or like is the one thing you really love from Venezuela that you've took forward and you hold close to your heart now? And what's one key thing that you hold close to your heart now from being in the UK that you've experienced since you've been here?
Particularly what I think from my country, it's the people. We are really, I'm not saying UK people aren't, but we're very warm as culture,
right, okay.
And we're usually very happy and we're very like laughing all the time, and like we are like sometimes even a little bit loud. But this is part of how we speak, how we reference to our friends and everything. It's a beautiful culture in the sense of like it's very well integrated, the whole society. And that's a key main thing. Like even a lot of the UK people, they are very respectful. And this is something that in both cultures you will find. But you will find that in Venezuela, you are more welcome and you are very more respectful. So in a sense of like, even I will walk past the street, and if I already make eye contact with someone, I already have to say, good morning, good afternoon, how are you, everything, even if I don't know the person. And sometimes in the UK, this might not be the case. You might say like, hey, you're right, or everything, or apologize, or anything. It's something happened, but that's a main key difference, like how sometimes polite you can be in Venezuela. And whereas English culture is a little bit more reserved. Like reserved, you're very introvert in that sense, and Venezuela is very extrovert in that sense. The one thing I do keep close in my heart from the UK is the fact that, at least when I came, you don't necessarily need to hold a degree or a major in anything to make a name for yourself. And this is unfortunately not like it's not possible to make in Venezuela, but it's definitely 10 times harder to do in Venezuela.
Wow, okay.
Things like having a degree, having a major, and having the experience and still influence a lot of what will make your career if you want to choose a corporate career or career of any type. This is changing a little bit, but not as in UK. To this date, I don't hold UK diploma from university. I've done many different studies, yes, but I don't hold a bachelor degree or a master, and I still was able to have some sort of success and make a career path, even though I didn't receive an education per se, and I learned mostly on the job by doing it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So basically, if you were back in your home country, you wouldn't have had access to all of that because you are held at basically you have to have the degree to get it. If not, it's nothing.
You have to have at least some sort of like degree, or like at least to the UK, you can still enter to intermediate level jobs or entry level jobs with not necessarily a degree or with not being anything that you've done in the past correlated to this. And this flexibility, it's something that I found that amazing. So a lot of my background came from hospitality sector, and I was able to transfer some of the skills to the creator economy. Whereas probably in Venezuela, to be able to do that jump, I would have to back that up with some sort of certification from the university or some sort of master. So the ability to progress, if you really want to, of course, in the UK, it was something that it made a major difference for me.
No, that makes sense. I definitely think the UK is, I guess, more of a flexible place in that sense, and I feel like you even have more opportunity here to just start things on your own as well. And even America, there's a lot more kind of potential, and I guess that is why a lot of people are drove to the UK and even the US for those opportunities as well. But I just wish it was more kind of like level, like worldwide, everywhere. But it's amazing to hear more about your story and your origin from your home country. So at one point, you were, I believe this is while you were doing your degrees, you run into some trouble like back at home, and you were in a tough financial spot, whilst you're over here in the UK. So how was that all for you? Like, how was your mindset at that moment in time, and how did you keep pushing forwards with what you wanted to pursue, even though you had that financial stress?
Oof, that takes me back a little bit. So basically, because of the same economic situation that we had in the country, there was some money aside from my parents, because an international student like myself, when it comes to the UK, we cannot get loans. We cannot get any support from the government or anything like that. We are international students, so we have our fee. We need to we need to get a visa. We need to get et cetera, which is okay. I mean, at the end of the day, we're coming to the country, so I've got no problem. But nobody expected the situation to hit so hard. And my parents were continuing to selling some assets that we had back home. And that wasn't possible because of the economic situation in the country, lack of offer and demand in the market, and made it not sustainable. So I had pretty much two options. I could have come back, which I wanted to. At some point, I really doubted to stay, I'm not gonna lie. And the other one, to stay here. To stay here, I needed my parents to come, and that's one of the reasons why they came to help me. But I won't get into those details because that's very like complex legal stuff. But I don't know how to explain it. Even despite all the difficulties, even despite of all the hardship that not only I face, also Santiago faced, because he's my brother, and we faced them together, we knew that we needed to stay. We knew that it was the right call, and we just decided to take a little bit of faith, I guess.
Belief,
and I asked my parents to come, and somehow we managed to fix it. And not everything went smoothly, not everything went perfect, but I just couldn't bring myself to come back because I knew it wasn't what I wanted to be. I know it wasn't, I didn't want to come back. I knew my place wasn't in Venezuela, and I've always felt it on my heart. I knew my life wasn't meant to be in Venezuela, and I just wanted to stay. If I needed to wait and to do what it was necessarily, I will do what it was necessarily for me to stay. That was the mentality. And when there was perhaps no fundings anymore, me and Santiago, we had to go to workforce, and that's how we started in the industry. And little by little, we defended ourselves in one way or another. And I started to see what it was like to be an adult, fully fledged adult, quite rapidly, and taking care of herself and managing bills, etc., the whole thing. And that wasn't the plan. That wasn't what it was. That wasn't what my parents wanted either. They wanted us to have like a little bit of a more smooth transition into like, you go focus on your university, finish your university, and then go on to labor. Work your way up the ladder, like very traditional mindset. But that wasn't what life had stored in for us. So we just kept pushing forward in a way or another.
Yeah, so eventually, obviously, you pulled out of university, and was Santiago doing the same thing as you in university as well?
No, we had different majors. So my major was in business economics, and his major was in mechanical engineering.
Oh wow, okay. That's not what I would have guessed actually, but yeah, no. So you obviously you both pulled out because like you said, it wasn't really that path that you really wanted to continue down at that moment in time, and you worked at a bar, and you used to put a lot of hours into working in that bar as a manager. Was this in the timeline of things? Was this after dropping out of university, or was it kind of around the same time, like during?
So I came in 2015, just to give a little bit of concept. By 2017 or 18, I had to drop out of university. But by 2016, I was already working in bars.
Right.
So I started, both me and Santiago started as a runner, which was the helper of the waiter, pretty much. And then we went into two different paths. He went on to be a waiter, and I went to be a bartender. The tips were better for a waiter, and he wanted to make as much money as possible in the least short amount of time, so he could put all these resources into his business, which later will become Futcrunch. And myself, I wanted experience to be a manager. And my path to get the quickest, it was to go through the bar, not to be a waiter. So I decided to go as a bartender to then become a manager, whereas Santiago wanted to have his own business. And around 2019, when we both dropped out, we just fully went into both of our separate things. Not to seem like he wanted to do his own business, and he tried many things along the way. And I went fully focused on becoming a manager for the hospitality sector because I wanted this experience of what it was like to run a business through a manager's point of view.
That's amazing to see. So you obviously would have learned a lot of key things from doing all that. And I think all those kind of piece together and help shape you to move forward as well in the right direction to what you're doing now. I saw that you mentioned before that you used to put in 50+ hour work shifts at the bar. What kept you motivated whilst doing tough shifts like that?
I don't know how this is gonna sound, but I said to myself I was gonna be a bar manager or a general, or I said I'm gonna make myself a general manager in this industry, and I'm gonna make myself a name in this industry. And so it was hard at the time. I was competing with some people that had 10+ years in the industry, because in the bar that I happened to work at the time, it was one of the most famous spots in the city. So these people were bartenders for years, like years. And
was this still in the Liverpool area as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I went from runner to be a barback, which is basically the same, but just focused for the bartender. And then literally, I remember that I wanted to be a bartender so bad that I kept asking for shift. I kept asking for shift. I kept asking. I kept helping every time that there was an opportunity to go downstairs to the bar, because if I was at a restaurant and a bar, I would have go downstairs and help. So even if my shift was finished at the bar by 12, I would have stayed behind and work until 1 or 2 on the bar.
Wow.
And they started taking me seriously when there was a bartender that called in sick for the restaurant shift on the bar. And I filled in as a barback, kind of making some drinks, some wine, etc., etc. I'm trying to like help here and now and then. I'm fully breaking down the bar, even though I've never been told how to clean it. And they kind of took me a little bit more seriously. And then the assistant bar manager at the time said, "Hey, there's a spec test coming up," which basically meant they're going to test all the cocktails of the bar as a test. And if you know the measurements, you need to pass them. This was one of the requirements. And basically I told him, just give me the shit, I'll learn it, and then I'll take the test. I didn't know any of the names that it meant. I just knew the counts, the amount of alcohol, and the names. And
okay.
I presented that test with another 8 people. They were already bartenders. And I think I was the only one that passed. So this drive was like what gave me my first breakout into the bar scene.
And a massive amount of drive. Yeah, you did. You had a lot of passion for it, and like everyone that has that amount of drive and passion will always succeed in life and get to where they want to be, because you have to put in that passion in the first place and that grind, that early grind to get going. With whatever path you want to venture down. So no, that's amazing. That's amazing to hear. Obviously, you were working at the bar for some time, but you then eventually joined Santiago at Futcrunch with his channel. Can you kind of sum up how did that happen? So the timeline then of you at the bar and Santiago started. At what point did you help him with a channel? What point did you get on board?
I was a bartender by 2018, I believe, and I was a bar manager by 2019. I was an active bar manager. I was actually a supervisor, but there was no bar manager at the time, so I was acting as a bar manager because there was no other people. And so by 2020, I changed the job to another place because I was sick with the place I was working in. And eventually by 2022, I was already the bar manager of that place. And basically within this period, of 20 to 2022, I joined this new bar, which was called Pins. And I brought Santiago with me because he needed another place. He was sick of the same place that we both worked together. And it was so funny. Santiago work, I spoke to my managers at the time and said like, hey, Santiago's a great place, and et cetera, great quality. Santiago quit within 3 weeks. He told,
Oh, wow.
he told me like, hermano, and I need to go and pursue this. And I was like, you know what? Just do it. Don't worry. I generally I generally didn't care because maybe might have put me in a difficult spot because I asked my boss directly to make space for him. We weren't hiring at the time. But I didn't mind. So he started full on the channel by then, 2020. And the whole putting all this time and effort. But 2022, I was the bar manager by the beginning of 2022. And by June 2022, I joined Futcrunch because we're both massive football fans. We support the same team, Real Madrid. And the big shift came with this. It was mainly Santiago went to the final, and you can maybe pull out the video later or like make a reference. It's the Real Madrid Champions League seats. I bought a $10,000 Real Madrid seat.
Right.
That Santiago went to the Champions League final and paid that for himself, right? And I just was fathomed or like impressed. I think I don't know. It's a poll. Maybe it's a poll. I don't know. It's a word. Maybe I didn't know how to describe this. I just said to myself, my brother just paid for himself to go to a Champions League final, and he's gonna make content out of it. He's gonna make some return.
So was it kind of like admiration then for him that he did that? And
I don't know if it was admiration or if it was a self-judgment, because I said to myself, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. That makes sense.
I just compare like my brother just paid himself to go to a Champions League final, whereas I had to work 65 hours that same week to have the night off. So I was average I did 6 shifts that week.
Right.
Average around 11 to 10 hours per shift to be able to have the Champions League final off. So I said to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, is this the right path? Yes or no? And within 2 months, I quit. And I said to Santiago, hey, at the time, there was already previous conversations a few months ago, like if there's any space, if I can do anything, etc. But nothing came forward because the opportunity of being the bar manager also presented to myself, and I wanted to fulfill that.
Yeah.
So, but within 6 months of the job, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wasn't happy. I wasn't driven anymore. I just didn't, there was no solution for the industry at the time. And it was not what I wanted to be. And my progression at the time, I needed to maybe wait another 2-3 years to get the next progression if I was being optimistic. So I decided to take a gamble, and I said to Santiago, like, give me anything. Like, I still remember he gave me his old computer, the first computer he bought. And I said to myself, if he gave me this computer as a gift, I will make sure that I will make money out of this. I will make something out of this. And that was the first computer that I started with, learning everything. And I just said, hermano, do you have anything? I will clean the house if you need to. And he said, yes. I took a pay cut at the time because it was what the business could do. But then that's how I started.
Well, that's amazing. I was just so locked into your story there. It's amazing to hear how it all happened, and just your sheer just drive, and I think it's important, when you hit that hunch where you feel like, is this the right moment for me to think, to step back and just kind of evaluate the situation. And I always talk about making sure you do things you're passionate about as well, because life's too short. And I think like that your story there just sums that up completely. That you had many lessons you probably learnt at the bar that were great for you and helped build you, like I said, but you reached the end of the road with that particular journey, and it was time to start the new chapter and change course. So no, that's amazing. That's really is amazing to hear. And since you've been working with him with the channel, so what so far has been the most rewarding thing collaborating with him?
Obviously, this doesn't get talked a lot, but the two most rewarding things, I believe, has been obviously first seeing the channel grow, but seeing the channel grow as a business as well. Okay? I've always been a very business-focused person, and this has always been my passion. So seeing that it also grows as a business has been the most rewarding thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like not long ago, we have an office now. We didn't have that. We secure important deals commercially and businesses speaking.
Yeah.
The financial side, in terms of like there's a structure, there's tracking, there's things as a media production company that I've personally am proud on the admin side, because that's a lot of what I do. Yes, my title might say Chief Operational Officer, but in reality, it means like most of the work that the guys don't want to do in terms of not making a video happen, then I will be related to it, which means speaking to accountancy, speaking to lawyers, speaking to making IP happen, speaking to our partners, a lot of the conversations behind the scenes, and see how the business grows from that aspect specifically has been probably the most rewarding thing for myself.
There's so many cogs in the machine, isn't there, as well, with a YouTube channel, especially when you grow it into a business, which is happening more and more now in the world of YouTube. So many channels are developing to businesses. And what Santiago's channel reminds me of a little bit as well is, I know you have yourself on board, there's Santiago, there's also Ricardo. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was a guy called Louis as well?
Luis, yes.
Yeah, I thought so. Were you all? Are you all connected? Have you all known each other for quite a long time?
Yes. Well, life works in mysterious ways sometimes. With the four of us were from Venezuela. That's one thing. Ricardo and Luis known each other. They're from the same city from Venezuela, Valencia.
Wow.
Me and Luis met on our first years of college. It was in 2015.
Okay.
We were doing different stuff, but he and me were from the same country. So inevitably we were friends, and thanks to another common friend, Ricardo also came to study English, and we also met him. And we're from Venezuela. We've worked together in the bars as well before. At some point, the four of us, we were in the same bar. So it was Santiago as a waiter, Luis as a barback, and me and Ricardo at the time, we were bartenders in the same place as well. So the four of us were working together as well. So we go back since around 2015, and it's like when you have 7-8 years of friendship, right? It definitely makes it makes it easier, and in a way or another makes it also maybe better because you feel a little bit more comfortable as well. So
yeah, that's incredible. Because what I was going to say as well, because what it reminds me of when Mr. Beast started his channel, and he hired all his friends. He had his circle of friends, and they helped really drive the channel. And I get that same kind of vibe here with Futcrunch, and you it's like you've got your close circle there as part of the team, and I think that's really important. Like you said, you're all kind of used to each other. You probably can bounce off each other as well. So I could imagine that's a really good setup to have.
I think for some reason life put us on it's hard to say. Like Luis is our producer. He's an amazing producer, and he's always been drawn into project management. So for some reason that becomes something very necessary into the business. And Ricky was always driven into marketing and storytelling. So as a creative director, he's been a great fit, and this is just kind of happened myself.
So it's
I've always wanted to
so
know.
It's like fate.
To call it fate, perhaps. I've always been drawn into like learning accountancy, learning legal terms, learning this and that, and it became useful. Like, and Santiago has always loved to talk and play FIFA. That's how it started, and he's always loved football as well.
Yeah.
And the four of us, we also love football. We all love football, and we are football driven. Having these opportunities, like, amazing.
Yeah, no, of course. Absolutely. So as a COO of Futcrunch, what does your typical day-to-day look like then? And what's some of the, the main responsibilities you juggle on a day-to-day basis?
First of all, the most important thing about my role is to pay people. I'm the one responsible for making sure everyone gets their pay.
And I can say that is very true. You always used to pay within 24 hours, most of the time sooner. Incredible.
That's still one thing I uphold to this day. Now it has come to the point that maybe I can take up to like 2 days sometimes, but that's very rare. And still I try to pay every time within 24 hours. And this is because I believe within my heart, even if you are a freelancer or if you are a full-time employee, whatever it is, your work is valuable, your work is payable, and everyone goes through financial distress. So nobody should be put in a position that they need to wait 14 days to pay up invoice, 30 days.
I absolutely agree.
30 days into an invoice. This is a personal belief that still holds to this very date, and this is something that I've got it because I experienced as an employee mainly.
Yeah.
And I think not many people, obviously, it can be hard to do this. I understand every company is different. There might be cash flows, there might be situations, or like say, sometimes every company might be different, but as long as I'm the CEO of Futcrunch, I will pay within 24 hours, if not faster. Or I'll try to.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. 'Cause I think sometimes, especially for me being a freelancer, I think sometimes when you work with businesses and creators, it's like sometimes they can forget that that work is actually like a salary for someone sometimes. So sometimes like you said, not everyone is as super fast as you. So I feel like that's just sometimes where people can forget that, and it can just slip a little bit. And that's the one thing I can really say about when I was working, on all the Futcrunch videos. I never had any issues with yourself. And that was delightful.
Apart from that, so currently I handle most of our agencies and contacts. Any legal issues or any contracts or any problems, it will go through me directly. I still handle the stuff in terms of internally. If there's a problem, if there needs to be a salary adjustment or anything, it will go through me. Accountancy, filing, taxes, all of that myself. But pretty much day to day will go through checking my emails first thing in the morning, both my personal email and the email of the business that we got on display. Then it will follow by any scheduled meeting that I might got aligned already throughout the day. Probably connecting with the guys within our group chat or separately. We need to be on top of anything projects. I work, even though I'm not involved on the creation of the projects, creatively speaking, if there's any branding or anything that needs to happen, most likely I will be involve setting deadlines, speaking, reviewing, documents. It's very admin work, what I'm mainly worried for. And sometimes we might have a crazy request and I just need to make it happen somehow or another.
I've seen those before. Super last minute, kind of makes you jump off your seat because you have to turn something around quite quickly. That's so I can imagine.
Anything that I can do on the admin side to push the business forward. We need an editor. I need to go and find an editor. In terms of like their profiles, reviewing them, and then present them to the boys and say, hey, do you guys like to, at the end of the day, they not necessarily might working with me day to day. So they also need to be involved in this process. Not, this person will impact directly the business. And even though I might onboard them, at the end of the day, I might not be the day-to-day manager, but I'm also in charge of, if they need to complain to someone, they complain to me. And I'm the mediator if there's a problem between senior members and not so senior members, and try to mitigate. So that's pretty much day to day. And if the house on fire, somehow we need to put it all together and resort it. But usually we do that, the four of us.
That's incredible, man. So you really keep the business ticking along then with all those little things, because that's often a lot of the types of things you say there as well that, people don't see, those sides of the business. What, in terms of like highlights, it can be from stadiums you visited, certain footballers you've met, or countries you've got to travel to because of, doing this work. What is like one of your key highlights, would you say?
I think the Saudi Arabia video that we did, which is called I Met Ronaldo, probably is one of my favorites, because I remember going to Saudi with our producer Luis to try to align that project. He did an amazing job. Because we got, thanks to him, we got some connections over there. And I was there mainly to support that in the business side of things, in case of asking any questions like, hey, how much is this profitable? Yes or no? Because we were speaking to important people to make this happen. And we went there like 3 months before, did a whole presentation. We were like a week there.
Wow.
And every door that we knock was a no, until the last day we managed to secure it.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, that was a very great achievement. And the trip itself in Saudi was amazing. The whole thing, and from the beginning to the end, that was beautiful. It was probably the biggest project we did up to the date. I was really, really happy with the Holland video, of course. I wasn't that so much involved in that video because Santiago was away and he recorded with somebody else, etc. And I wasn't so much hands-on as I was with the Saudi one. But it's definitely a great highlight because it completely changed the trajectory of the channel, I believe. And a personal favor for me, it's probably one of our recent videos that it's called I Recreated Impossible Goals. We managed to do a partnership with Blackburn Rovers Stadium. Basically, Ricardo and Santiago came to me and Luis to say, we need a stadium, a football stadium. And I was like, what? We need a football stadium. And
that's amazing.
And within a month, I've got a stadium lined up. And I remember going through every single possible stadium from the National League all the way to First Division. That was an hour away from Liverpool, to make it feasible for us, to make sure this could happen.
Got you. Yeah.
And we managed to make it thanks to Blackburns. So I'm really grateful for that one. So that was a personal achievement because we set up a new high, right?
Yeah.
As well, another personal one, I would say that was one of the reasons once $1 versus $20,000 football seats. I've got to say a massive thank you and a massive team effort was this from everyone involved, because this video took about a month to produce and then another month, just a month to the record alone, and then another month to get it out. And the alignment between
and finish it up.
And the editing between what it was, because this happened simultaneously, allowing the times between the Copa America and the Euros. It was how we cover both and blending into both together. It was beautiful.
What an amazing what an amazing bunch of achievements. You've done so many things. It feels like the sky's the limit with you guys, because you've done some great brand deals, like even the opportunity you just mentioned with Blackburn Rovers and their stadium. That's absolutely amazing. And even the places you've been to travel, and the footballers and the ex-footballers you've got to meet. It's just, you've done if you take it back to the channel when it was just playing FIFA to now that as well, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So you've all done a great job. And like I said, it feels like there's so much more you could accomplish as well, which is insane. I just wanted to ask a question as well, just going back to Venezuela. So reflecting on your journey from Venezuela to now becoming the COO of Futcrunch, out of all that whole timeline, what's the one most important thing, lesson that you've learned from leaving Venezuela to where you are now in life? If you could wrap it up in kind of one kind of summary of what you've taken from it, what have you learned from it, what would you say?
Let me think about it for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll have another sip of water while you think.
Okay.
It's all good. It was a very loaded question.
It might sound a little bit cheesy, but
okay, go for it.
I don't know if you're familiarized with the speech that Steve Jobs gave when on the graduation from this university, on the commemoration ceremony. I think it was Stanford, maybe? I'm not too sure. Maybe it's wrong. But basically, before he died, when he came back to Apple, he pretty much gave a speech during the ceremony. And bear in mind, Steve Jobs never finished his studies as well. And he said something: you are not able to connect the dots while everything has happened, but then you will be able to connect all of them together. So you always had to be faithful that some way or another it's going to work out.
That is some incredible kind of, piece of advice from him there. So that's kind of how you would reflect your time looking back at your overall journey so far.
Yeah. Were there hard times? Definitely. Were the times where...
Absolutely.
Everyone at some point in life will feel like, you know what, this is not working, my life is not okay, etc., etc. But I think as long as you believe in something, as long as you have, just keep going, keep pushing forward. And I know everyone says this, which is what I don't like about it, but you don't know how life is going to play it out, right? You don't know how life is going to play out. You just got to be faithful that it is going to work out. And will work out one way or another. As long as you bear that in mind, then you're probably going to be fine despite of all hardship that you might face.
Yeah, that is very true. Absolutely agree with that. And in terms of moving forward with Futcrunch, do you guys have any goals or projects that you're aiming for in the near future that you really want to achieve? Anything spring to mind?
We definitely want to achieve the 1 million subscribers. That's one thing.
Oh yeah, of course. You'll absolutely smash that in no time.
but we also want to be the biggest football channel in history. I don't know how that's
I
going to
think you
look
can
like.
achieve that too. I think you can do it.
But that's kind of our North Star, and that's what Santiago wants. And we are following to make the best content that it hasn't been done in football and for YouTube. We are going to make it one way or another. And would it be like the likes of hopefully partnership with the best teams in the world, hopefully partnership with the best footballers in the world, and things like this. Obviously, we don't know when that's going to happen, but we don't plan to go anywhere. We don't plan to leave this, and hopefully it just grows and grows and grows.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think you can do it. I honestly do. And as I said, just, a little bit earlier, I think the sky's the limit with you guys, and there's so many more things I think that you're going to achieve, with the channel on the whole. This is a question that I'd like to ask, for what would you say to someone else that was doing something like, say, for instance, let's go back to when you're working at the bar, and how we said how you kind of reached the end of the road with that, and it was a moment where you wanted to change path, change direction. What advice would you give somebody that is in that position, but they're scared to change direction?
I guess the most important thing is to know yourself, in a sense of like, most people know when they're done with something. And when you reach this, that's the point when you gotta listen to yourself. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? Generally speaking, you find another job, you start over, and what's the worst thing that can happen? Generally speaking, I know the situation of every single person is different, and this advice might be very general, but if you look at it from the perspective of, look at yourself, right? You are done with this situation and you cannot really cope, then you could take a path where like, hey, this is what I can do for now, accept it, be okay with it, and then start looking for something better. No, nobody's saying to you like you need to quit your job and then to be a content creator, for instance, or like nobody's saying that you need to start and go all in and like quit everything else. No. Like you can make changes as you are comfortable with them. And honestly, if you are in a position that you generally, for the life of you, you cannot do it anymore, then you need to listen to yourself. Then you just need to done.
Absolutely.
When I quit the first place I worked, which was called Alma de Cuba, I was done. I just said to myself, I can't do this anymore. And it was the same when I left the industry. In general, I said, I cannot do this to myself anymore. I can't. I reached the ceiling and I look at my possibilities and I was like, okay, do I really want to be 2 more years of my life working until 3 a.m? Yes or no? No, I don't want that. I don't want that to myself. So can I find a job that has a similar pay or maybe less, but at least I get to have a little bit of my life back? That was all that was going through at the time in my thoughts.
That's great advice, man, and I totally agree with everything you said there. And I feel like when people are in that situation, it happens so much that fear can block them from thinking clearly and moving forward, and it's such a scary thing, isn't it? Sometimes I feel like, again, with what you said, you have to kind of feel what you're feeling as well. And I think it's important to follow your passions and what your particular interests are and try and go down those routes as well. But I think that's solid advice, man. I really resonate with it. With a lot of stuff you said, it's similar to me when I quit what I used to do to, do what I'm doing now, editing. So yeah, absolutely. And that's my very last question, man. That's gone so quick.
It has indeed.
So Moises, thank you so much for joining me on this episode and telling me, the ins and outs of your story. It's been really fascinating to hear. And I've really enjoyed every minute of it. So thank you for coming on board.
No, thank you for the invitation. I really like that. So I'm really excited. Really, thank you. Been amazing.
I hope everyone listening that you've enjoyed this episode also. Stay tuned for future episodes to come. This has been another episode of Exploring Every Angle, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care for now. Bye.